This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell. It is Wednesday, September the 16th in the year 2015. We're coming to you live and around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, the Starcom Radio Network, the Digital Broadcast Network, and the Digital Satellite Network. Worldwide toll-free at 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And you can listen to the X-Zone 24/7, 365, as well as the live show Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern until midnight at www.xzoneradiotv.com. This is a big day for the GOP. Presently at the Reagan Library in California, they are having the debate. The second part of the debate with the top 11 candidates. I had the opportunity of watching the bottom four tier. And if the top 11 are anything like the bottom four were, it's going to be one heck of a debate. We are recording it. Craig and I are not going to watch it during the show because we're going to watch it after the show. And we've got side bets going on, as we usually do when it comes to anything like this. And Craig promised he didn't call any psychics, and neither did I. Does astrology count, Craig? No, okay. Exonation, my guest this hour is Roberta Grimes. She is an Austin-based business attorney who had two extraordinary experiences of light in childhood that prompted her to spend decades studying nearly 200 years of abundant and consistent communications from the dead. Using this material, the principles of quantum mechanics, and the latest developments in consciousness research, eventually she was able to figure out what her experiences of light had been. And beyond that, she learned so many details about what happens at and after death and how the entire process works that in 2010, she published The Fun of Dying, Find Out What Really Happens Next, which was updated last year. A 2014 sequel, The Fun of Staying in Touch, details the many ways in which the dead give us signs of their survival and also some astonishing recent advances in the field of after-death communication. Her website, robertagrimes.com. And Roberta, welcome to the X-Zone.
Hi, Rob. I'm so glad to be with you.
Oh, we're so happy to have you. Tell me about those two childhood experiences you had with the light.
When I was 8, and this was April of 1955, in fact, I believe it was April 9th. That's how intense this experience was. I woke up in the middle of the night and thought, I bet there's no God. And I was terrified. And in the midst of my fear, there was this brilliant flash of white light in my room. And I remember the room to this day, even the awful wallpaper, because of that light. And a young male voice said, "You wouldn't know what it is to have me if you didn't know what it is to be without me. I will never leave you again."
Wow.
How's that? But when you're 8, everything surprises you. Nothing, therefore, surprises you. And I just thought it was handy that if you forget there's a God, they remind you. And I went back to sleep. But that kind of experience stays immediate in your mind. 60 years later, it's as immediate as if it had just happened. And you also never talk about it. it's too private, too weird. No one ever talks about it. I didn't talk about this to anyone until almost 40 years later when my mother had a similar experience. But I had to know where that came from. I mean, that was real. And all I could think to do was to research the afterlife.
What did you find out? Who was that voice?
I didn't realize until I was pretty far along in my research that it was probably my primary spirit guide. And only this year am I in touch with my primary spirit guide during the day. We all meet during the night with our primary guides and other guides, but I had not wanted any contact with him in the daytime till he broke into a reading that I was having with my family in February. And so now I've met him, and I love him, and he's wonderful. I think that's who it was.
Now, you said when you were having a reading with your family, were you at a psychic? Were you at a medium? Or how did this happen? And what did the other members of your family say when he broke into the conversation?
We basically moved away from them. My mother died 2.5 years ago, gave me a lot of spectacular signs right after she died. I knew she was fine, but I had this nagging thought she wanted to talk to me.
Right.
And my favorite medium is Suzanne Wilson. She's in Arizona, so I deal with her by phone, but I think she's the best I've ever found. So I made an appointment with her, and I said, Suzanne, let's see if Mom's okay. So I had wonderful, wonderful validation from all my family. And then she said about, when it was perhaps almost 10 minutes left, she said, your guides are here. They want to talk to you. So it's as if you sort of go to a different room. The guides are there, but not your family anymore. But yeah, my family apparently is freaked out because they know what I'm doing here. And they said, we're very proud of you. You know how parents are.
Yeah.
But what my guides said would have freaked them more if they had heard them talking, I'm sure.
Well, what did your guides say?
Oh, do you really want to know this? We're going in a whole different direction.
Yeah, I do, because you've got my interest up, counselor.
Well, all right. This is the thing. My primary spirit guide stepped forward, introduced the others. I have 11 guides, so there were 10 others there. And then he said that his name was Thomas. And I said, at the same time he said, his name is Thomas Jefferson. In his next to last lifetime, he was the American founding father, Thomas Jefferson. Didn't surprise me as much as it probably should have, because I've been obsessed with Thomas Jefferson all my life. I even wrote a novel about his marriage. Wow. So that's how my saga of this year began. And it's been quite a saga, I must say. But he wanted me to recreate a book that he had written when he was Jefferson and never published. And he told me he would help. Now, I'm not psychic. I'm a psychic as a post, Rob. I am totally not psychic, as much as anyone is not psychic. But your primary guide lives in your mind pretty much. And he was able to get me started on the book pretty well.
So you received a presidential angelic spiritual order all in one.
Whoa, that's a great way to put it. That's great.
Now,
yes.
So there was no way you could say no, because they had all bases covered.
That's right, they did. Yeah. I mean, right, exactly right, sir. How do you say no to Thomas Jefferson when he says he wrote a book and it got lost, it never got published, he really, really wants it to come out now? What do you say to him except, of course?
That's right. Listen, the name of your book, The Fun of Dying, find out what really happens next. Why do you say that dying is fun?
I'm not the one who says it. The dead say it. And it isn't. It's the process of dying is fun once you get to the process. Having your body gradually get weakened is not fun, and your body won't give you up until it's pretty weak. And I know that's not fun. But as soon as the dying process starts, it gets to be terrific. And some variant of the word fun is really the most common way that the dead describe their lives now. They're having a heck of a time.
Sounds like they're having a good time on the other side.
They absolutely are. And they have much more to do. It's just, I can't tell you how much more wonderful it is there than here.
It must be a great place, because very few ever want to come back.
Yes. And the only reason we want to come back is that we are driven to try to learn and grow spiritually when we're there. When we're here, we forget that's what the earth is for, and we go off and do other things. But the purpose of the universe really is to give us a place where we can learn to love more perfectly and forgive more completely. Doesn't seem to be any other reason for it to exist.
Why, in your opinion, is there such a fear of dying?
Because our institutions have let us down. We trust science and we trust religion, and I'll, in this case, be talking about Christianity. Scientists tell you that you blink out like a light, which is, they know that's not true. If they have half a brain, they know that's not true. It's nonsense. The evidence is abundant that they're wrong. But because they espouse a dogma of materialism, they can't go there. They can't investigate the truth. And Christianity, for its part, teaches us to fear God and teaches us that we're very evil. We have original sin. And it's Christians, especially very devout ones, when they're on their deathbed, typically are very fearful.
Yeah, I can understand why, and I can see why. But this is one thing about religion that I have never been able to understand. The New Testament and the Old Testament. The Old Testament, God is a mean son of a gun. Look,
you're right. Yes,
he
exactly right.
destroys Sodom, Gomorrah. He kills all the Egyptians, which apparently are his children too. So he has favors. If God doesn't like you as a child, he kills you.
Absolutely.
Not a very nice role model for a father. But then when you go into the New Testament, it seems like kind, loving, forgiving. It seems like God's got split personality.
Different guy,
yeah.
Right? Well, here's the. I told you that Thomas Jefferson, who actually doesn't even want to be thought of as Thomas, he's just Thomas, my guide. He wanted me to write a book. Well, the book is about Jesus, and it was. Basically, Jesus is not happy with Christianity at the moment, I must say.
Can you blame him?
Because I ended up channeling Jesus too. This is the most. I think this is why I was born, Rob. We never really know why we were born, but the book comes out in October. It's called Liberating Jesus, and it's a channeled work. And it basically says the Old Testament's not even supposed to be in the Bible. You're absolutely right. That is not God. That is a God created by people, who were in a very primitive state,
sure.
And who finally had figured out there is only one God, and that God's not material. Yeah. So that was when God thought maybe He could, get them to get to the next stage of spiritual development, and Jesus came to do that.
Well, let's face it. Let's take a look at the author of the Book of Genesis, Moses. Here you've got a guy who's been up one mountain, down another. He's run from the Egyptians. He was, he was given up by his own mother. He was found in the bulrushes. This guy has had one hell of a life. Plus, to really put the icing on the cake, he's not allowed to get into the land of milk and honey.
That's really not fair when you think about it.
No. So, yeah, I can understand why he would put God as the tyrant that the Old Testament kind of puts him into.
Yeah. The God. One of the great things about doing the work that I've done is that you learn a lot of other things. Anytime you investigate anything that's real, there's a lot of side information you pick up that's also consistent. And one of the things that afterlife researchers have found is the genuine God. I think that's fairly big news. And the genuine God is not material. And the genuine God is basically an amalgam of all human minds. There's probably more to God than that, but all of our minds are part of God. And this is something that Max Planck discovered. He got the 1918 Nobel Prize as the father of quantum mechanics. And quantum mechanics basically suggests very strongly that human consciousness has to predate matter. It has to be primary and pre-existing. And he came right out and said it, and he was ignored.
Well, that's because it didn't fit the scientific model of the time.
Doesn't fit the model, right. That's right.
Let's face it. We're lying to our kids each and every day when we tell them that Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas, and this is just the easiest example that I can give anyone.
Yes.
What about the Vikings? What about the Irish monks, by the way, who got lost crossing the Atlantic? They were looking for a pub that was supposed to be open 7/24.
And it was not open, unfortunately, when they got there.
Yeah, that's right. It wasn't. But, the history is filled with these kind of, I call them historical bloopers. And I've got my own definition or my own description of what the Holy Trinity is. It's simple. It's H2O. 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. Without it, you and I would not exist.
The Holy Trinity.
Yeah.
That's a very refreshing take on it.
Yeah, it's better than Larry Curly.
One of the many things that the early church councils did was to make up the idea of a Trinity. There is no such thing. I mean, much of what Christianity sort of focuses us on, there just doesn't exist. There's no evidence for it at all. The notion of Jesus sacrificing himself for us, would never have needed to. There's no evidence that God or any religious figure ever has judged a single human being, ever, at death. And I've looked for it. I mean, believe me, I was the world's biggest Christian. I've looked hard for it. Nobody has ever found any evidence that anyone but ourselves is our after-death judge.
But, when you look at Christianity or any other religious philosophy, it is a way to control the people.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But that's not what it was meant to be.
I know that. You know that.
It was meant to be a way for us to learn to love and forgive as rapidly as possible, to grow spiritually, because that's why we're here.
Yep. In fact, the way I look at the early Bible is it was a way of people trying to make sense of an existence that they were just tuning into. They didn't have the sciences that we have today that give logic to existence. What would have happened if the Bible would not have been written until, let's say, yesterday? How different would the Bible be with knowing what we know?
It would be very different. It would contain Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John edited to remove the stuff that the Christians put into those 4 books. That's it. You could put it in your back pocket.
Exactly. So let me ask you, as a counselor, do you find that your the way that the law is written and has as an attorney investigates a case that they're working on is how you've proceeded with your book?
Of course. All of my work has been essentially an investigation. As I say, I'm not psychic.
Yeah.
When I was investigating afterlife communications, I wouldn't look at any which were received after 1950 because we have such a bounty from the first part of the 20th century. And I was afraid anything later, someone's trying to make a buck. Yeah. So I've been very, very careful and narrow in my research. And to this day, I don't go to movies. I don't watch television. I don't want anything to pollute what I've learned from the primary sources. It's very important to me to be able to tell people honestly and truly what's going on, as opposed to what other people have thought about it.
Exonation, Roberta Grimes is our special guest this hour. She's the author of The Fun of Dying. Find out what really happens next. Her website is www.robertagrimes.com. Roberta, what are the major stages in the death process?
Well, there sort of are 4. I mean, this is a continuous process. But we're sort of drawing arbitrary lines. What happens is you have to get to the place where you're actually starting to die. And curiously, one of the signs that you're at the end is you start to feel better. If you've been in a coma, you might wake up and talk to people, and doctors know that means death is starting. You soon start to see people in the room that you used to think were dead, and they look young, healthy, happy, terrific. And suddenly, then usually you stop interacting with the living, or almost entirely do, because of course they, for the most part, usually can't see your deathbed visitors. So let's call that the first stage. You're being welcomed by people you love, or animal. I've been told my horse is going to come. I can hardly wait for that. It could be dogs or cats. They're very common. But then the second stage would be when you start to retreat from your hands and feet and up into your body. People who have been awake while this was happening have said it doesn't hurt, just feels a little strange because the energy it's like unvelcroing from your toes and up into your chest,
Right.
and gathers there and then leaves the body. We say it goes out of the top of the head, but most commonly people at the deathbed who can see it happening will see a mist rising from the chest area. They can see it because that's you, actually. They can see it because it's not much higher in vibration than your material existence is, than your material body is. But then it appears to them to disappear because it's gone to a higher vibratory rate, and you reform into a body. You're just attached by the spirit, by the silver cord. So let's call that maybe the second part of the death process. You're very, very happy. People who have told us in detail about their deaths say that feeling of leaving the boat anchor in the bed and being free, young, happy, healthy, strong, and there's everybody you love, that's fantastic. That's terrific. And some people say it even has a physical pleasure to it. Then your family's trying to distract your attention because what they're worried about is that you'll turn and try to talk to the people around the deathbed. If you do, you may lose your ability to perceive your deathbed visitors. So little tip for people who aren't, yet dead, when you start to die, make sure you pay attention to the dead who are around you. Do not pay attention to the living because you can't get their attention. And if you lower your vibratory rate too much, you may be unable then to see the people who've come for you. Then your silver cord frays and separates. That's the moment of physical death because then your body has nothing to sustain it. It dies. At that point, and as quickly as possible, your family tries to get you out of the room and tries to get you to go with them. And you and they together are raising your vibratory rate. People who have looked back at the deathbed at that point say it starts to look vague and vapory, and then it disappears. And they're sort of in a little fog usually, but they're right with people they trust. They're not afraid. And then finally comes the fourth stage. All around you, the mist clears, the fog clears, and you're in a beautiful, solid, earth-like place that it is exactly in the same place where we are.
So where is this other place?
Right here. The easiest way to describe it, Rob, is to think about TV channels.
Okay.
Everything is energy.
Right.
Nothing is solid, in fact.
True.
And that energy is right. It's like TV signals. You have probably 100 or 200 in your room right now around you. Mm-hmm. And those TV signals, if you have a TV to hook up and, turn on, tune on channel 2, you've got a solid reality there. Think of your mind as that TV set. Right now, you're tuned to that body on this level of reality, just like you were a TV set. And that's why it seems so real. When you die, all that happens is that your mind tunes to a slightly higher channel, and it picks up a whole new solid reality. Just as was true with the TV set, it's in the same place the old one was, just at a higher vibratory rate.
All right, so what happens to us on the other side or on the other channel? Do we see God? Do we see Jesus? Do we all get our white garments, our wings, and do we float on clouds with a harp?
It's a very human process. There is no evidence we've ever found that's reliable that God has ever taken corporeal form. God is energy and spirit. God never, and the dead tell us, God never appears in a physical form. Jesus is all over the place there, and as are Buddha and Gandhi and a few others, but not God. But anyway, what happens is first, you have happy reunions, and then two things happen. We generally, just to give you an orientation, there's a spectrum of energy levels. The lowest two, the two closest to the vibratory rate of the earth, are what Jesus called the outer darkness, where there will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Those are the bad sort of punishment levels. We put ourselves there. I've never seen any evidence that anybody else but ourselves has put ourselves in the lowest level. 3 through 5 are beautiful. We call them the Summerland. That's a Viking term. They look like Earth perfected and beautified, and they're very culturally dependent. So if you go to the Chinese Summerland, it looks quite different than from the North American, for example, which has beautiful mountains all around. When above Channel 5, above level 5 is the 6th level, which is the highest level to which we can really aspire at this point. And that is called the teaching level, the causal level, the mental level. It's where the very highest level beings live, and they come and teach us. They readily, if a husband has graduated and his wife is coming and he wants to build her a house, he'll draw it out, and then 6th level beings with very powerful energies will come and make it appear. It shimmers into existence, and it's a permanent house. Level 7 is the center of the Godhead. It's I call it the vibratory center of God. It's hard to really, because it's not an onion. All these energy levels are in the same place, just at higher vibratory rates. It's hard to really say for sure, but that's the source of all the beautiful light that fills the afterlife levels. There are no suns there. And it's the source of the light I saw in my bedroom when I was 8. It's a very intense light, much brighter than sunlight, and it's white. It's quite beautiful. You can look at it with your eyes. It doesn't hurt your eyes.
So let me ask you this. If we're energy or spirit within a physical body, at the time of passing, our physical body ceases to exist, we return back to our energy state, right?
Yes, except that because your mind is very powerful, your mind creates whatever you want to look like. And most of us choose to make a body that looks like this lifetime when we were maybe 30 years old. Most of us choose to do that. Some people will want to look like an earlier lifetime. My guide Thomas does not at all look like Thomas Jefferson now. He looks like the farmer he was in his very last lifetime.
How do you know? Have you seen him?
No, but my medium has. She said it's amazing to know who he was because he doesn't look like that now at all.
So if we are energy and we go to the next channel, why would we need these higher beings from the 6th level to build a house for us, for the coming wife, if we're energy?
We are, but we are weak energy. Here's the great travesty.
Okay. We
are here to learn to raise our spiritual rate. You know, Jesus talks often about be thou perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. This is how you get into the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah.
Well, he's not saying this is how you get to level 3. He's saying the kingdom of heaven is pretty clear. It's level 6. This is how you ace it. You have to really, really work hard at it. Christianity doesn't teach people that. So when we get there, most of us, we are still spiritually quite weak. There's plenty of people in level 3 and many in level 4, very few above it. And that's something which, frankly, Thomas and Jesus want to change now. They want to teach us that we really can and should be striving to reach the kingdom of heaven in this lifetime. We can do it.
So do we come back or do we stay up there?
We come back a lot. Yes.
So let me get back to that question. If we come back, why do we need a house? Like this building of a house by the people of the 6th dimension or the 6th level, this has got me a little confused.
Why?
Well, why? Why would we need a house if we come back? How do we know? Wait a sec. How do we know what we're coming back as?
Well, we'll come back as a person. I'll tell you what the process is. Our minds are eternal. We never began. We never will end. So we spend virtually all of eternity there. That's our real home. And when we get there, we realize, okay, now I'm home. I mean, I was just having a rough day in school there for, 80 years. But and there's no time there. So it's just not, it doesn't seem like we spend very long here for each lifetime. When we get there, we want to relax. It's like R&R, and we want to play. The two things that happen are we go through judgment by ourselves, and that's rough sometimes, and we'd party. Everybody has a party. There's a lot of partying that goes on. Anybody who does almost anything here that is significant in helping humankind, they throw you a parade. I mean, it's wonderful how much fun it is when you get there. But eventually, there's a hunger, and it's a hunger which is stronger, they say, than any craving you've ever had, whether for food or sex or anything. And that's the craving to grow spiritually, because you can only go as high in the afterlife levels as your spiritual development will allow. And if you are only able to get to level 3 or level 4, and after that you just flame out, you can't get higher, you're frustrated. Everybody is hungering to get to the top of level 5 and into level 6. And until you get pretty high in level 5 in your development level, you're going to want to come back. They all do. And what happens then is, or I should say we all do, what happens then is that you get together with a bunch of other people who are close to you. We have a ton. If you think you don't have friends here, you got a ton of friends over there. And we plan another lifetime. And we plan it as a deliberate way to grow spiritually as fast as we can. So we plan in all the bad stuff that happens as a way to learn and grow.
All right, we've got to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Please stand by. Exonation, Roberta Grimes is our guest, www.robertagrimes.com. She's the author of The Fun of Dying. Find out what really happens next. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone. We'll be back after this news break. Don't go away. Carl O. Helvey Holistic Cancer Foundation is a new nonprofit foundation that focuses on a holistic approach to cancer that includes physical, mental, spiritual, and political aspects. Cancer education, research, and care are provided for all types of cancer patients. You can listen to interviews with cancer doctors and survivors and read research on holistic aspects of cancer at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com. That's www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Jeff Gilson didn't go out looking for adventure, danger, or the answers to most of the controversial political intrigues of the past 30 years. But he found all three when he began investigating the mysterious death of his close friend, Margaret Thatcher's favorite speechwriter. Just an ordinary guy living in a small, sleepy suburb 20 miles outside of London, Jeff's questions provoked a powerful response on both sides of the Atlantic. He was shot at, warned off by the CIA, and formed a close bond with one of Israel's most notorious intelligence officers. Relive Jeff's gripping adventure in his fast-paced book, Maggie's Hammer. Peel away the layers of establishment deception and discover, as Jeff did, that his friend was an assassin with British intelligence, that Great Britain has been America's secret hitman for the past 30 years, and that Princess Diana was not the target in that Parisian tunnel. All of this and more when you visit www.maggieshammer.com and find the link to buying this explosive book online. More and more ordinary people feel they no longer have control of their lives. Jeff fought back. He asked the difficult questions. He set out to redesign his own destiny, and you can do the same using Maggie's Hammer as your guide. Don't waste a moment. Buy it today. Visit www.maggieshammer.com.
I'm William S. Peckham. If you enjoy a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love my novel, From Out of the Woodwork. It's the story of a young Toronto contractor, Sean Kennedy, who buys derelict homes, guts them, and turns them into multifamily dwellings. Slums just waiting to happen. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, the house fights back. Former owners unexpectedly come out of the woodwork as he starts the destruction. The apparitions come to him when he touches old books, reads hidden letters, rummages through old boxes, finds a locket, or reads a discovered manuscript of a murder mystery. From Out of the Woodwork will take you from 1899 to the horror of the World Trade Center, September 11, 2001. Check out From Out of the Woodwork on my website, www.williamspeckham.com.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
Ever wondered if your advertising dollar is really working for you? If your ad would have been here, you and more than 4 million people would be listening to it right now. Contact ads at xzoneradiotv.com. Welcome back, everyone. Roberta Grimes is our special guest of this hour. She's the author of The Fun of Dying. Find out what really happens next. Her website is www.robertagrimes.com. Let me ask you a very simple question, Roberta. Where do we really originate from? If we're not really humans, but we're spirit or energy, where is the beginning for each and every one of us?
Well, here's the thing. There is no time. There's only now. Now is all that exists. So therefore, you never began because you've always existed, and you never will end for the same reason. But I don't understand it completely, but this is what the dead tell us.
But if we know that everything must start.
Right, you think you do. You think you know that because time is such a factor. Time and space are factors in this material reality only. They're not, in most of reality, they don't exist.
But even quantum physics tell us there has to be a beginning.
What quantum physics is a kind of plug between the less than 5% of reality that we are aware of and that scientists study, and the more than 95% of reality, which is what we think of as the afterlife. But there's a whole lot more going on there than just our afterlife. And in all of that 95% plus of reality, the only physics is consciousness. There is no, quantum physics. That's kind of a plug between that consciousness-based physics and Newtonian physics, which is what exists in the rest of this reality. And we think that the reason we have this mathematics-based artificial physics in the universe is to keep our minds from messing with the playpen. This is where we are to learn. And our minds are so powerful that if we had consciousness-based physics here, you wouldn't have to bother to do anything because your mind could conjure up whatever you wanted.
So would you say that coming to this planet, to the current reality, is basically a school field trip?
Well, yeah, well, I used to call it a rough day in school, but I've come to call it now more like a trip to the gym. You know, you're trying to get really fit, and each machine in the gym, they tell me, I've never tried this, each machine is there to strengthen a different set of muscles. Well, you choose adversities for each lifetime to strengthen a different set of spiritual muscles. In one lifetime, it could be the loss of a child. It could be a terrible illness. It could be, your mother-in-law. These are all just ways for you to learn and grow spiritually much better.
So you
can't do it there.
Would you say that the analogy of a school would be an appropriate analogy?
Very, yes. A lot of people call it a school.
All right, so let me ask you this. When I was going to school, we learned about World War I, we learned about World War II, we learned about the dinosaurs, and we didn't have to go back in time to experience these things. There were other people, when it came to World War II, who would come and visit the school. They would give us a talk. If there was something about health, we'd get a nurse or doctor to come to the school. What is the sense of each and every one of us reliving these negative things in our lives just to learn something when we could have people tell us and teach us if, in fact, where we go from this planet, this reality, to school somewhere, why do we need to subject ourselves to all the pain, all the negativity, all the plight that a human has?
That's such a great question. And the answer is pretty simple. We are not learning intellectually. We are learning spiritually. And it turns out, although there are a lot of classes you can take in the afterlife levels, in just those things, this is what this or that is like. This is what this or that does. I mean, they teach us a lot there. But that's why I've taken to calling it a trip to the gym. Until we have a way to actually use our spiritual muscles, we really can't make progress in the afterlife.
If we haven't learned by now, after all the millions of years that we're told we've been on this planet, and if in fact we are, like you said, part of existence that has no beginning and has no ending, which means we have been around for eternity,
right?
If we haven't got it yet, what makes anybody think we ever will?
That's why Jesus came 2,000 years ago. Other major figures have done the same thing. If you read just the parts of the Gospels that Jesus actually said, and that's not the whole thing, but just parts of it, he says, we are here to learn and grow spiritually. We are striving for perfection, learn to love, and he tells us how to do it, learn to forgive. He tells us how to do that. If we seriously live the Gospels for one lifetime, we can probably go from level 3 to level 5 in one shot.
All right, let me ask you.
But nobody does it, Rob. Nobody does it.
All right.
Nobody tells us we need to.
Okay, so let's look at this as in another way. If Christ was so righteous, if Christ was so right, if he was supposed to give us an example, he did a very bad job because he ended up dying on the cross at a very early age.
Well, he had a choice. At the time that he walked the earth, to talk against the prevailing religion was a death sentence. And he stayed alive 3.5 years to tell us what he needed to tell us, but he knew in the end he was going to be killed.
So why didn't he go to a place on this planet where he would have been safe and able to amass the followers that were required without the threat of death?
Look, here's the thing. We can't now know why he made whatever decisions he made, but I do think that his dying and rising from the dead was a part of what he was trying to teach, because he came here to teach specific things, how to make progress, what human nature is, what reality is. He came to teach us a lot of things, but also the fact that we are eternal. So how do you teach Iron Age primitives that death is an illusion unless you prove it to them?
Well,
so you go through a ghastly public execution, and then you rise from the dead and go, ta-da!
Well, wait a sec. Hold on here.
Yes.
Okay. This is all a theory. Give me your facts to back what you're saying up. I want to hear evidence. I don't want to hear hearsay.
Would you like his word on it?
How are you going to do that?
I channeled Jesus this year. I'm not even psychic, but I did channel Jesus, and he says it. That's what he says.
But how do we know you actually channeled Jesus?
You don't have to believe it. But I look, he could, you're right, have taught until the police, where actually it was the temple guards, were right on his tail, and then he could have gotten on a boat and gone somewhere. As he said when he was going through his judgment before Herod, he said, I could just call for a legion of angels and they'd come and, take you out, Herod, but I'm not going to do that. So he made the choice to die as he did. I think what happened, though, was that after he died, he had carefully given a charge to his disciples, knowing he was going to die. And the charge was, go and teach to everybody in the world what I've just taught to you. But I think that, he probably made very few mistakes. But one mistake he made was that he misjudged just a bit the ability of these people to survive losing him. And so Paul saved the teachings by wrapping them in a first century Jewish sect, which is what Christianity remains.
Let me ask you this then. If we are eternal beings, why hasn't he come back and picked up from where he left off?
He's tried.
And what happened?
You've got to ask yourself this. If you're God and you want to give new revelation, how do you make people believe that's what you're doing? You're going to talk to Rob, and Rob is going to tell you, I don't believe what you're saying. In point of fact, Jesus is now in the 21st century restating his teachings. And he's telling us that if we don't, that's the only way to make spiritual progress. I mean, you said, why do we live so many lives?
Yeah.
Because nobody takes it seriously as a school. But he's also telling us we're coming to the end of our civilization if we don't start following his teachings. This is a restatement of the Gospels.
But what about the people who don't believe in Jesus Christ? And that includes the Hebrews. They don't believe in Christ.
He came to them.
But they don't believe in him.
Follow the teachings. The teachings are what matter. Jesus doesn't care whether you believe in him.
But
follow the teachings.
Something isn't sitting right with me about this entire thing, because if we are eternal, right, and if we have the ability to choose our next existence, and if we don't know where we came from and we don't know where we're going to be going, it's like there's this little sliver in time and space that is responsible for everything we're doing now. If God is just energy, if we're talking about a group of beings who we're all connected to one way or another, it makes no sense that we would want to come back and put ourselves through what we've been through. It makes no sense at all.
Have you ever craved anything?
Only spaghetti.
Well, think of the world's, you're starving, right? And you have the world's most massive plate of spaghetti just beyond your reach. And other people are eating it and they're feasting, Rob. They're feasting. And you want that spaghetti worse than anything you've ever wanted in your life. And the only way to get it is for you to raise your spiritual vibratory rate. And the only way, because you're a level 3 being, is for you to take a new earth lifetime. We think when we're there that these lifetimes are, nothing, because we're eternal beings. It's such a short little time, because time isn't real to us anyway.
How do we know? How do we know that this is what it's really like? How do we know that this isn't just an inner want, an inner craving that someone has created this myth, this legend, to give us hope, to give us some sense of being, that when we die, we slip out of this body, we go somewhere else. How do we know we just don't rot in the ground?
The reason I was even willing to dare to research it is because of that experience I had. I realized after the fact it was an insane thing to do, because what if you were right, Rob? Yeah. But you're not right. In the latter part of the 19th and the very sort of first 30 years of the 20th century, the dead, and they always work in teams of dead researchers were making a tremendous effort to get to us the fact that they had survived. And there were serious researchers, and books were being written and a lot going on. And if we had not had a scientific community that refused to look at what the dead were producing, you would have lived your whole life knowing that what I'm telling you is true. Because we have many hundreds of communications received through mostly deep trance mediums, sometimes through channels, and in that, say, 40 or 50-year time frame. And every single one of them is consistent with every other one of them. I say in The Fun of Dying, it's like reading hundreds of accounts of 200 years worth of travelers to Fiji.
All right.
You're going to Fiji.
Okay, now hold on here. If this, in fact, has been researched by the scientific community, how come it then pardon?
It has not been. The scientific community has stonewalled this information for 100 years.
Why then?
Why?
Yeah.
Because it upsets their apple cart. They have a good shtick. Their good shtick is Newtonian physics. And suddenly there are these upstart so-and-sos who come up with quantum physics, which they hate.
Then how come?
And then
how come? Wait a second, counselor. Wait a second. Then if that is the case, how come the major religions, Christianity, Catholicism, and Jewish religion, Hebrew religion, does not accept the concept of afterlife communication?
I love talking to you. This is so much fun. Can we go for hours and hours?
Sure, why not?
The reason they don't is they are just like the scientists. They have a closed-minded belief system. They have dogmas. They don't want and they also have power. Power is at the base of all of this, because if you suddenly understand that it is possible to discover the afterlife, and in fact being a Christian doesn't matter at all. They don't care what your religion is. What matters is how well you've grown spiritually. You're not going to be a worm in a pew and putting money in the tray. You're not going to do those things. So if you're not allowed to study that stuff, if they say, "Ooh, you can't do that," then you're going to stay in their religion. And their religion is fear-based.
But you know what? It would work in their favor for them to accept it if
you and I know that,
real.
But they don't. They don't know that.
Okay, tell me about your channeling Jesus. What was it like?
Oh, Lord. I started with Thomas, and we were doing pretty well with the book, I thought.
Yeah.
And then Thomas, on the 9th of June, seized my friend who's the medium and said please apologize to me. The energy would be much higher because I was going to be working directly for the master. And at 2:00 the next morning, I stepped from a Ford into a Maserati. You wouldn't believe the experience. The energy was very high, and he did a 40,000-word book in 2 weeks. It was the most amazing experience of my life. He would not take a single, because I didn't like what I was writing, and he wouldn't take a single suggestion. It's just everything that he wanted to say, and he got it said.
The 9th of June.
9th of June.
And you had your experience with a light on the 9th of April.
I didn't even think of that. You're right. That's right. Much different, many different decades between, but yes, maybe the 9th is significant for me somehow.
And you also said that you had your experience of light at night. And you had your experience of communicating with Jesus, channeling him at 2:00 in the morning.
It began at 2 in the morning.
How do you know it wasn't a dream?
Because it went on for 2 weeks. Actually, it went on for 3 weeks, but there was a week when I was away and he was just making me crazy, but I couldn't write anything. No, it went on day and night. I mean, that first session went from 2:00 in the morning right through the night and the day until after dinner. He wouldn't let me stop. And finally I said, I have to sleep.
How do you know it was Jesus? Because in the Bible it says in the end days there will be many false prophets. How do you know it wasn't a false prophet taking on the persona of Jesus just to get you to write something?
It doesn't matter, because if you read Liberating Jesus, what he says there is, follow my teachings. Now, if that was a demon saying follow the teachings of Jesus, and I frankly have to tell you, that's what the dead keep telling us we need to do too. Thank goodness for that demon to say that. But I trust Thomas. Thomas told me it was the master, and I believe that it was.
Okay.
I mean, all I can say is the proof is in the pudding. The book will be out in October. It's called Liberating Jesus.
Wait a sec. The proof is in the pudding. What proof is there? That
it's in your heart, sir. If you get on your knees, and I mean, we look around us, we can see that we have made a hash of civilization, we as a species.
Yes, and 95% of the wars that we've had is in the name of religion, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the many things that Thomas said, and then Jesus came along and said as well, is he meant to start a philosophy to teach us to grow rapidly and, spiritually. He never meant to start another religion. That was done by Paul. And it was, thank you, Paul. He packaged up those precious teachings in a religion, but it's a first century religion. It really hasn't moved on.
Then religion was started by Paul, how come Peter was the first pope?
There was no pope when Peter was around.
Peter is the pillar of the Catholic Church.
I know. There's a lot of revisionism that happened in a series of councils that in the 3rd and 4th centuries, and those revisions included a lot of things, including some stuff that they put into and took out of the Gospels. And Jesus says what those things are.
Hey, Roberta, we've got to say so long for tonight. I want to wish you continued success.
Thank you so much.
And Exonation. Roberta Grimes has been my guest this hour, www.robertagrimes.com. Now, I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Whatever you do, don't go away, because we will be back. Without Jesus, I think. Maybe. You never know.